Hello, it's Casey Paquette, and I'm here to do my video assignment for assignment number 3. What we had to do for the assignment was simply just pick a movie from the list given and talk about it due to the past and present direction. The movie I chose was Gerald's Game. In a little summary, Gerald's Game is about a couple that goes on vacation, and Gerald, the husband, dies and leaves his wife Jessie in handcuffs. And I'm going to go more into the movie as I start this video. So, in the beginning of the movie, you can clearly tell something is off between Gerald and Jessie, which are the husband and wife. Gerald talks about his wife in a demeaning way and is always talking to her as if she's like a subject. I have a quote. It says, Gerald says, "You just laid there and I went to town and you moaned like a dutiful wife who never rejected." And to me, that's very demeaning because he's basically saying like he can do anything and she won't care. Jessie was always doing what she was told, especially if a superior male was telling her to do so. Shortly after, we find out that Gerald is taking Viagra, which obviously makes Jessie not feel good about herself, even though this whole time before the trip, she knew he was taking them, but she didn't say anything. And, of course, there's a reason for that, but I'm going to talk about it later on. This trip, Gerald's main reason for this trip was to spice up their sex life. So when they first get to their house, Gerald begins to do role play, where he handcuffs Jessie, both her hands to the bed, and wants Jessie to pretend like she's getting raped by Gerald, and Gerald making Jessie call him daddy. Which again, we will talk about later on. Long story short, Jessie says no, and Gerald has a heart attack because of the Viagra he was taking, and dies, while Jessie is still being handcuffed to the bed. She needs to learn to survive and get out before she dies, because no one is going to check up on her, because he called to make sure everything was okay before this trip was even happening. Not soon after Gerald dies, Jessie hallucinates Gerald coming back, and then also, sees herself as well in these hallucinations, and it's all about they're both going back and forth with different ways to help Jessie and free her for her own survival, giving her moments to look back on her life. Also, during all of this, there was a dog that got into their house they were staying at and began eating at Gerald's flesh, and Gerald hallucination says to Jessie that hunger gonna fade and a dog's gotta eat, meaning the dog will eat her. The dog will eat her, but then also metaphorically saying that himself, Gerald, too, is a dog and that he needs to have sex, like dog gotta eat kind of thing, you know? But soon after, we find out Jessie has a flashback to the days her and her family spent on the lake, and this is where we find out the main focus of the movie. The family went on a boat to watch the solar eclipse, and Jessie and her dad stayed back because Jessie didn't want to go on the boat. Jessie's dad then began asking Jessie to sit on his lap like the old days, and this is where he sexually assaulted her. Jessie had a very bad relationship with her mom, therefore Jessie's dad convinced her not to make mommy mad and not say a word to anyone, and Jessie agreed and never said a single word. Because of what happened with her father, she hated Gerald's roleplay, obviously, especially when he asked her to call him daddy. That's going to hit hard for her. Same when Gerald took that Viagra, she kept quiet and didn't say a word. It's all she knew. That's what she was used to. Jessie's hallucinations of herself explained that she married into the only dynamic she knew, which was her father. Gerald was that substitute of her father. Jessie was slowly going to die, and this is where the death monster, I guess, I don't know what you would call him, I just call him the death monster, found her. Gerald's hallucination explains to Jessie that she has to get out, or the death monster will steal her jewelry and kill her when it hits night, because she has been going on for, I think, 3 nights, and each night she was slowly getting closer to being freed, but she was also getting very weak. Finally, Jessie has the idea to cut her wrist, which makes it slippery, so she could slide her wrist out And this is where she got face to face with death and gives death her wedding ring. I didn't explain this, but the death monster, basically, Gerald explained that he would take all your jewelry, all your riches before he would kill you. So that's why Jessie gave him the wedding ring. She then somehow manages to escape and realize the death monster is actually real. She goes to this court case, and she finds the monster, but also her father, both staring back at her in cuffs, which I find it really, like, unique how they ended it like that. Like, she freed her demons. Like, she got out of there. That's what I got from the movie. 2 reviews also really made me open my eyes to dig deeper. The first review, it makes it clear that Jessie was in handcuffs, right? As I stated before, like, they wanted to do roleplay, she was in handcuffs, but this review made it clear that Jessie was shackled in handcuffs even before Gerald put her in those cuffs. The review says Jessie was shackled long before reaching the lake house by her marriage and acquaintance to Gerald, and years earlier by suppressed memories of sexual violation. As a result, she now has more than one set of chains to break. I agree with both the movie and the review that Jessie was handcuffed to keep her dad's secret, and then also was forced to be with Gerald. I found that quote, like, fascinating because she physically had to get out of the cuffs, but then she also mentally had to get out of the cuffs. I also found it really interesting how both settings, past and present, with Gerald and Jessie's dad, were the exact same, like, the setting-wise. Like, Jessie was little and her father sexually assaulted her. They were at the lake house. Same goes when this was happening to Jessie now. She was at the lake. Her past, her father, was just like her future Gerald, but in their own different ways. That's why I think those flashbacks, because these were all flashbacks, the hallucinations, and I thought that played a very important part because distinguishing past from present and then comparing them, I think is really, like, a big deal. Like, it shows, like, character and how they grow, or even in Jessie's case, how they stay the same and only stick to what they know. But Jessie even says that she hates the lake because she has a fear of drowning. That was in the past with her dad. That's why she didn't want to go out on the boat with her family. She wanted to stay with her dad because she had a fear of drowning in the lake. But what I found interesting was, does Jessie, like, feel like she is drowning when she is with Gerald and by keeping her secret about her dad? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if she just actually has a fear of drowning or it's more deep than that. The question really arose when I read that review. The second review made a really interesting point that the director made this movie like an escape room, and everything in the room Jessie was handcuffed to, she needed to use for survival. An example of this was in the movie, she was handcuffed, so she obviously had to make do of how she could survive, and there was a water right above her that she could grab, but the handcuffs restricted her from drinking it, so she had to find paper or something, I think it was paper, to make a straw so she could reach the water. And I found that really interesting that this review made it seem like it was an escape room, because that's basically what it was. She needed to escape and use all her materials to do that. Gerald's game is a set of tightly wound gears that cranks out dread. This is what Carla Guadagnino and Bruce Greenwood are superb and as they have ever been, releasing in the opportunity to ask and answer all the big and little questions about Jessie within the confines of an exquisite, simple, torturously suspenseful thriller. This movie honestly was doing great with flashbacks, and I think this is why this movie really captivates the audience and want to root for Jessie. They see her in present movement and how Gerald treats her, which is like trash, and then we flash back and see that her father figure assaulted her and that Jessie doesn't have good luck with picking men. But is it like the matter of what Jessie looks for because that's all she knows? Like, does she look for all the qualities in her father and in Gerald because she's never had anything else? Given this movie was released in 2017, I think it's more of a present movie than past. It has a lot of how women were treated back in the olden days with no respects like objects and being controlled like men, present day women now are slowly getting respected and becoming independent, which I think is so important. And there are certainly other movies that portray these qualities. Um, Even in Gerald's Game, it shows Jessie going out of her comfort zone and being on her own and realizing and owning up to and sharing her past, which I think is probably really hard and really brave. So in Gerald's Game, overall, I think past and present, they did such a good job captivating that theme. And that's why I think this is such a good review, because they really went into the past and present of how the flashbacks were so important. And even with women, today, it shows that, like, we're strong, we can get past things, like, we go out of our comfort zone, and we're independent. But it also shows the woman in the past when she was handcuffed saying that, like, you know, that we're not weak, but we don't stick up for ourselves, we let men control us. So I think they did a really good job captivating the past and present, and that's why I really actually enjoyed this movie. I thought, like, I didn't think I was doing my homework, I thought I was just watching a movie, and I really enjoyed it, and it really opened to my eyes to see and to compare the past and present with mostly anything you look for. So, yeah, thank you.